Hey, so I am back to read more Ghost in the Machine for you guys. My third video in a row. Keep them busy. So we are over halfway through this book already. Can you believe? All right. So we left off, something else was happening. He just saw his dad go and change the crow on the library. All right. So Wednesday, September 22nd, 2:19 p.m. Okay, the past hour has been a whirlwind, but I'll try to explain fast. I couldn't go back to the cafe, or I'm sure that waitress would have been like, "What is your problem?" I can't take that kind of stress right now. So I'm sitting at the station house. Not under the station house with the blue rock, but on the steps leading up to the door that's never unlocked. I wonder what's in there. Scatterbrain. I need someone to slap me so I can calm down. So here's what happened in the past hour. I packed up my stuff and left the cafe. I've never walked around in our tiny, hanging on for its life downtown with so much anxiety. I've never worried about who might be watching me. My dad could be right around the corner. Daryl Bonner might be staring out from behind a window. Gladys Morgan could come out at any moment and point her shotgun at me. And that Dr. Watts guy, he might have his binoculars trained on me. Call some thug on his phone, and they'd find me wrapped around a tree in the creek tomorrow morning. I turned down a side street as soon as I was outside the cafe and walked away from the library toward the woods. There are woods all around Skeleton Creek, but the cafe was on the side of the street opposite the big mountains. I glanced up at them and saw how small the library was in their monstrous shadow. All those books don't add up to a hill of beans against one big mountain. I turned down a side alley and couldn't stop thinking about a pile of books. Like every book ever printed. And I wondered if all those books would be as big as the one mountain. Makes a guy wonder about who made mountains and why they were made so big. So all these thoughts were running through my head, which kept me from being too nervous at the thought of turning a corner into my dad or Ranger Bonner or Gladys ready to slap me across the face with a copy of War and Peace or Lord of the Rings. Before I knew it, I was walking past the library, glancing up the Black Crow as my throat tightened. It was a very quick glance, like reading a clock and going back to my homework. But that was all the time I needed to see that my dad had changed the time. A straight shot to Martha's at 10 past the knob. So where he lined the bird up, the direction it's in links back to that chart that he found in his dad's nightstand. So what it says to where it pointed is a straight shot to Martha's at 10 past the knob. I kept repeating those words because I'd memorized them from the alchemist diagram of 79. So that's the diagram that was in his dad's stuff. Before I knew how I even got there, I was across the street, down a block, and sitting on the curb, shaking uncontrollably. I thought about the mountain of books and my body not growing. I breathed the mountain air in and out until I felt a little better. It dawned on me then that I should keep watching from where I sat. No one had seen me, or at least if they had, they hadn't stopped me. Maybe something else would happen. I stood and peeked around the corner onto Main Street. I sort of leaned on the brick building, like I was playing it cool in case anybody walked by. I waited. 5 minutes went by, 1:51. 5 more minutes passed, 1:56. People walked by the library, but no one appeared to look at the crow. No one went inside the library. It just sat there until 1:58, when Gladys Morgan opened the door and came outside. She stood there a moment looking up and down Main Street. Then she looked at me. I didn't move, and it wasn't because I wanted her to see me. I just couldn't move. She stared right at me, and I half expected to hear her whisper, "Don't make me come looking for you." But she acted like she hadn't seen me at all. Gladys is ancient, so I was likely nothing more than a cataract-induced blob next to a fuzzy building. Still, it was creepy the way she stopped and held her gaze right where I was standing, like she knew someone was hiding just outside her ability to see. Gladys turned around, looked at the Black Crow, and went back into the library. 2 p.m. I lingered. I don't even know for sure why. It wasn't like I had it all figured out or anything, but something told me to stay. This little dance wasn't done yet. At 2:03 p.m., my dad came back. He walked casually up the sidewalk and jumped the 2 steps to the library door. He didn't see me. I watched him reach up and move the crow, and when he did, I realized he was doing the job the apostle had once done. The apostle will see you now. Could my dad have written those words? If he did, he's crazy. Meet my dad, escapee from the nut house. Was it worse than crazy? Was it deadly? No, I couldn't think about that. He would have been just a kid when Joe Bush died. A kid like me. I walked to the Blue Rock so I could leave a note for Sarah. Now here I sit with the sun beating down on my head. Stress makes you do things you shouldn't. It's that whole fight or flight thing. I worked my leg way too hard today without even realizing I was doing it. It didn't hurt then, but it hurts a lot now. I hope I haven't re-injured it. I'm not looking forward to the long walk back home. The lies I'll have to tell about what I've been doing all day. The questions about the shirt I didn't buy with the money my dad gave me. But wait, who's the real liar here? My dad moved the signal, then moved it back. Everyone in the Crossbones knew they were supposed to look between 1 and 2 p.m. on Wednesday. Maybe they've been looking for years, who knows? Probably it's all part of some elaborate system. The crow moves the first time, and everyone knows it will move again at 1 p.m. the next day? Could be. That makes sense, because my dad is gone all day, every day. But Dr. Watts and Gladys, they're right here. Maybe Dr. Watts goes to his top window every day, points his binoculars at the library, and then goes back to whatever it is he does in that old house of his. All Gladys has to do is glance out the door she steps through every day. Sarah, you're going to have to move fast. Crossbones is meeting below Longhorns at 12:10 tonight. I can't walk out here again. My leg is killing me. You'll have to email me, but my guess is they'll be watching even closer. Send me a note at exactly 9 p.m. and let me know if you need me to do anything. I'll turn in early, tell them I'm tired and not feeling well, and maybe they'll leave me alone. At least I know my dad won't be home tonight. My best guess about who you're going to see at the secret meeting? Dr. Watts, my dad, Gladys Morgan, and maybe Daryl Bonner. Everyone else who might have shown up is already dead. Ryan. Wednesday, September 22nd, 5:05 p.m. Sarah's going to email me in a few hours, but right now I'm sitting on the front porch trying to play it cool. The old couch is getting some holes, but it's the most comfortable place to rest outside my own room. I hope my mom doesn't move it to the yard and try to sell it. Dad and Henry are still at the creek fishing, which doesn't surprise me. Some of the best bugs come out in the late afternoon and early evening. They might not be back until 7 or 8, especially if they're trying to avoid another dinner like last night. I've had the house to myself all afternoon, and Mom won't be home for another hour. I brought my laptop downstairs at 3. For the past 2 hours, I've been digging around. 3 cans of Coke later, I found some amazing stuff. I have decided that I'm obsessed with Robert Boyle, Robert Hooke, and Sir Isaac Newton. As far as I'm concerned, these guys were rock stars. I can see how a secret society would be interested in them. Who doesn't love a mad scientist? But after the research I did today, I think I'm starting to see a bigger reason why the members of the Crossbones have been interested in Boyle, Hooke, and Newton. A brief history of these 3 people is worth writing down. First Hooke, Robert Hooke. So remember when they found the names in the dredge? There was Francis Palmer and Joe Bush, who we know have passed away. And then there was his dad and Dr. Watts and Gladys, who we now know are part of the Crossbones. There's the Apostle. We don't know much about him, really. And then there was Hooke, Newton, and Boyle. And we found out that they were all scientists. And they were interested in alchemy. So Ryan's going to give us a bit more info about these scientists. A brief history of these 3 people is worth writing down. First Hooke, Robert Hooke. Many historians believe Hooke was the first person to use the word cell in relation to biology. That alone makes him larger than life. Imagine being the first person to use the word pizza, or football, or movie. Those are nothing compared to the word for the building block of all life as we know it, including pizza, footballs, and movies. Impressive. Robert Hooke did all these experiments with air pumps and springs and elastic, a bunch of really great stuff. A lot of people give Hooke credit for inventing the balance spring, which is what makes small timepieces possible. He theorized correctly about combustion decades before anyone else understood it. He invented barometers, optical devices, microscopes, and universal joints. Hooke was one of the first people to accurately measure weather, to see objects too tiny for the naked eye, and survey huge parts of London so it could be rebuilt after the Great Fire of 1666. He also figured out some very important stuff about elasticity, but I have to admit I don't really understand it. One of Sir Isaac Newton's most famous lines was actually in a letter he wrote to Robert Hooke. If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. So that's what Sir Isaac Newton, the discoverer of gravity, thought of Hooke. Not bad. So Isaac Newton says that he discovered more because Robert Hooke made all these discoveries first. So that helped him learn new things, and that's what that quote means in his letter. Sir Isaac Newton is even more important than I realized. Sure, I knew he was impressive, but I could have spent all day researching the things he invented and discovered and not even scratched the surface. From gravity to planetary movements, from calculus to how light works, Newton was at the forefront of so many groundbreaking discoveries, it's no wonder he is known as the father of science. And then there was the last of the three, Robert Boyle, who turns out to be the most interesting. So let's start with his hair. Hopefully you guys can see this picture. He has very long, flowing locks. Fancy. The guy had guts to go out in the streets of London looking like that. Wow. Plenty of wigs to choose from at the wig shop, and he chose the biggest of the bunch. Back in the day, they used to wear wigs, because then they could get long, beautiful hair and look fancy. It's like, when you show up in a blue mermaid wig to school. I'm not saying one of you did that, but I'm just saying, kind of like that. Robert Boyle was a scientist with devout religious beliefs. After reading up on him, I think this is one of the key things that made Boyle unique. It's not that other notable scientists of his time had no faith. It's just that Boyle was a Christian first and a scientist second. The fact that he was highly successful at both made him a powerful figure of the times. He admired God's workmanship and saw the study of natural science as a form of worship. The only way, in his view, to discover the world God made was to investigate it. This seems like a sound idea to me. As far as I can tell, he was a little bit of a nutty professor. Just about everything Boyle ever wrote was short on organization and long on ideas. I imagine if he'd had a car, the keys would have gone missing all the time. He was constantly refuting the ideas of other chemists and scientists, and although he was often right, this might have had the effect of making him seem like a know-it-all to some. He was outrageously wealthy, primarily because his father was one of the richest men in Ireland. His title, I'm not making this up, was the Great Earl of Cork. But I don't think he made corks or pluggers or bottle caps. He lived in Cork, which I guess is a place in Ireland. Anyway, this meant Boyle could afford to hire assistants, including Robert Hooke. Yes, that Robert Hooke. Remember, he's one of the other scientists we just learned about. To work for him. It was Boyle's idea to explore gases and pumps, but Hooke did many of the hands-on experiments. Many people regard Robert Boyle as the most important chemist of his time, which makes the fact that he was an alchemist all the more interesting. You heard me right. Robert Boyle, the Robert Boyle, was a closet alchemist. And not just a hobby alchemist, he was fairly obsessed with it. So alchemists were the people who were trying to take other metals and turn them into gold. Apparently, Sir Isaac Newton also thought a lot about alchemy, but it was Boyle who appears to have been at the forefront of this very subjective science. And while it's harder to find references to Robert Hooke and alchemy, something tells me all three of them were secretly working in this area together. Alchemy, I'm starting to learn, was then and continues to be today a controversial offshoot of real chemistry. During Boyle's time, it was viewed as voodoo chemistry, where chemicals and metals were brought together in strange ways to accomplish outlandish things. It was not serious science. And here we come to the most interesting thing of all, the thing that makes the appearance of their names in the crossbones make all the sense in the world. Robert Boyle wrote a secret paper that didn't surface until long after his death. It was never meant to be published, but it was. This is what the paper was called: An Historical Account of a Degradation of Gold Made by an Anti-Elixir. If you believe this secret paper by Boyle, he was very close to figuring something out. Something remarkable and kind of scary for what it could mean. Robert Boyle was very close to finding a way to turn gold into something else. So he had maybe found a way to turn gold into something, but we don't know what yet. Imagine if you could change the properties of gold so it wasn't gold anymore and then change it back again. Imagine. What if you worked on a gold dredge and had a way to hide gold or change gold, then change it back? So, I think what Ryan is hinting at is that if somebody took the gold from the dredge, they could turn it into something else. Like, I could turn it into copper, and copper is not worth as much as gold. And if you had taken a bunch of gold and stolen it, you could just make it into copper, and everybody would be like, oh, it's not Miss L. She just has a bunch of copper. And then I could take that copper and turn it back into gold, and nobody would know. Sneaky, sneaky. Okay. It can't be possible, can it? Could Boyle and Hooke and Newton have secretly figured this out but told no one? What if the secret is out there and someone from my little town figured it out? A process like that sure would come in handy on a gold dredge. It might start to answer why so many members of the Crossbones ended up dead, and why at least one of the dead doesn't want to leave the dredge. Dun dun dun. So that is where I'm going to end this reading today. We're still not at another video, but after the next video where I read to you, we will definitely be at another video marking it. So, this is getting curious, right? They're on to the Crossbones, who are meeting at the Longhorn House at a little after midnight. So Sarah's going to go check that out. So they're on to that. And they're figuring out these scientists and what their discoveries were and how somebody might be stealing gold from the dredge or have hidden it somewhere. We don't know. What do you guys think is going on with the gold? Yeah, it could be. It is a very tricky situation, and there is a lot going on. Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm looking forward to reading more of this. Yeah, it's a good book, and there's still 2 more in the series. Lucky us, right? All right, so I'll see you guys next time. Bye.